Good morning, everyone. It's early Sunday morning for me when I'm filming this, and I was thinking, let's make do a quick video. I gave you just a quick look at how I paint hair. There's hair all over here because I started rooting eyelashes without you. Here is a baby that has had his hair painted, obviously, and what I'm going to do is give him a layer of this Bountiful Baby Look Alive thinning medium. I've never used it before until today, and so I'm playing with it, and I thought this might be a good time to talk about that. I want to seal this hair up a little bit. You can do that with varnish, you can do that with thinning medium. This kind of thinning medium, not the stuff, the liquidy stuff in here, that's not the same thing. And I haven't done lips and moisture on this baby yet, and when I put him in the oven, the sides touched him, so some of his paint got damaged. So I'm going to repair his paint, and I'm going to put a layer of this lovely stuff on top of his hair. But before I do that, I want to color correct him. I'm a little late in the game for color correcting because he's already got his hair on, but I think I'm going to do it anyway, and that kind of gives me a chance to show you how to seal a baby or talk about sealing a baby. If you feel moved to seal a baby up, you can use varnish. Be very, very light with that varnish, and we're talking about just a matte varnish you would get from Genesis. Ta-da! Go really, really light on that. I'll show you, I'll give you a demo in a minute. Or you can use paint thinner. Again, go super light. And he has had just a bit. This was the first time I used this Look Alive medium. And I sealed up his face and his hair with this, and it worked out just fine. Let me show you how I do that. Now, when you do it, you won't be adding colorant to it because you'll be smart and you'll have color corrected your baby. But since I'm here color correcting this baby, it's the same process. You're basically going to sponge this on with a sponge, and that's it. And I'll show you how to do it, but I'm going to add a little color correcting. And this might just be a good time to talk about color correcting again. So this baby, to me, is still way too yellow. And I thought, you know, it's good enough, it's good enough. It's just me being my picky self, and maybe so. But it just didn't sit right with me. And when I was almost done, I said, forget it. I am definitely going to give that baby a little bit of color correction. What I did was I mixed this Look Alive thinning medium with the Heat Set Permanent Matte Varnish, and I made it like a very, very thin color here. Let me show you. And it is a bit of periwinkle and a bit of lavender, and the reason why I chose that is because we talked about the color wheel before. My baby is just a little bit on the yellow side here, and the opposite of that are these purple colors. So hopefully it'll take some of that out. I don't want to put periwinkle and lavender on that baby. That would be mean. What I'm doing is I'm just taking a tiny bit of that, and here, this is glass, so you can see how much of that is really on there. It's not much. I'm going to put that on this sponge. This is how you would do it without the colorant if you were just going to seal up a baby. And let me get a limb here. Here we go. And you're just going to pat that on. Now, make sure you get it in there good. You don't want lumps and bumps. And just go all over that baby. I don't know, some people, pardon me, don't mind that texture. It looks a little, it looks just this slight texture. Some people don't mind that. I'm not crazy about it. I don't want the baby to feel like it's got fine grit sandpaper on it. Some people are comforted by that. They think that it means the baby is a little bit more durable and its paint's going to hold up longer. And maybe that's true. I have no idea. I don't really like it. So after I do this, I get a cosmetic sponge like this. Now, these are a little bit more expensive, but the sponge is tighter. And so when you go over it, you get this finer, smoother layer. Why don't I put it on with this? I don't know. It just doesn't go on the same. And so I'm just going to pat around there. And it's basically buffing out that texture that we had on there before. And you're probably thinking, how the heck is she going to do the face? The hair is already on there. Very carefully, my friend, very carefully. I'm just going to make it work. And these are the lessons you learn and you tell yourself later. I'm not going to put myself through that again. And this face isn't nearly as yellow as those limbs. And I don't know why. I may have just over applied the yellow when I was doing it. I don't know. I'm just going to fade it out where the hair is. And it shouldn't affect that hair color at all. And I know I sound like I'm rubbing and scrubbing, but I don't want it too thick on the face, and I just kind of want it to be very, very subtle. Again, the face isn't as yellowy as the limbs are, probably because it has a heck of a lot more pink and blues on it than the limbs do in the larger areas. This little pointy place is perfect for getting inside those little nosy cracks and those little eyeball-y cracks. Okay. There we go. The ears didn't really need it. But I don't want there to be any obvious lines that I put something in one place and not in another. So I'm just blending it out, just like you would do your face makeup if you wear that. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of this purple and put it on those lips. I think it'll make them pop a little bit more. And inside that nose a bit. Voila. I think that looks great. As for the hair, let me grab a clean brush because we don't want that same stuff on there. I'm just going to get this Look Alive medium straight out of the tub. Use a clean brush. I guess it doesn't matter, and I know I must sound like the pickiest person in the world, but I cannot stand to look in somebody's tub and see all kinds of muck in there. I mean, it happens, especially when you're in a hurry or you're in a groove, but try to keep that tidy. Once it gets contaminated, it's hard to get it back, and just use a clean brush. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this Look Alive medium over this hair just to seal it up a little bit. And I would usually mix this with a little bit of matte varnish, but I want this hair to look a little wet. Does that make sense? The varnish is going to dull it down a bit. And I'm going to top root this hair, so I probably don't want a lot of varnish on that baby because it'll gum up my rooting needle. I think this will work out just fine. I'm going with the flow of the hair, so if my brush strokes come through, they're going to look like hair. And if you put the matte varnish in, it might be a little bit thicker, and sometimes, and I love it when it happens, you can see the brush strokes, and it just adds dimension to the hair. So I'm just following the lines I already made. Again, I don't want to see that, oh look, this is where she started varnishing and this is where she stopped. So I'm going to make sure that all the hair has been done. Before I put it in the oven, I'll make sure that there aren't any places that need to be fixed on that hair, because I see a little scratch where the oven or my fingernail must have touched the hair, and I'll touch that up with a little bit of hair paint. And then I'm going to take this sponge again, and I'm just going to go around that hairline and the forehead, and I'm going to buff that out. Again, I don't want to see where the varnish started and the varnish stopped. I see some little dry places where I must have forgotten. Ta-da. You can also use a little bit of this on the eyebrows. You don't want obvious lines. And actually, since we're here, let's do this. Let's grab a toothpick. I'm going to show you a little trick for adding some dimension to eyebrows. I love this. So I have a toothpick, and I'm going to get a fine brush. Not a fine brush, but one that isn't just so big and weird looking. Sorry to waste your time. I wish I had like a dirty joke or something to tell you. There we go. So I'm going to get the matte varnish. I just talked about not making a mess in your matte varnish, and I can see some flesh in there from mixing. And you're going to go over those eyebrows like that. Then you're going to get a clean toothpick, and you're going to follow with the toothpick the lines of the hair that are in your eyebrow. And don't touch this when you're done. You're going to be tempted to go in there and tidy up, and don't. Just once you have done the hairs, don't touch it. You want to keep those lines there. Because right now I want to go in and just don't. So anyway, there you go. And what's going to happen is once that bakes, you're going to have a little bit of texture. And it's going to look like, it's just going to look more realistic. But you will see some of that texture. I'll bring this out before we start eyelashes so that you can see how that turns out. So that head is done. I'm going to do the rest of those limbs super quick. And we'll get started with some eyelashes. Oh, and baking that. This is where I crank it up a bit. Be familiar with your oven. I'm my oven and I we know what we're doing together. We've been working a long time. So make sure that you know what your oven's capable of and how it behaves. This is where I usually crank the heat up to 270. I'll go 8 or 9 minutes just so that I can seal that varnish up really, really good. Make sure all that paint is nice and cured. And when I turn up the heat, I make sure that my hands and feet are facing down, because for some reason, when they're up and you get those higher temperatures, it makes this very, very, very shiny. And then you're going back to matte varnish and you're doing all of that again. Which, if you do get super shiny hands and feet, matte varnish is your friend. Just give them a nice sponge on. Make sure you buff it out a bit, and it should take care of those shiny bits. I hope that made sense. I didn't really plan that well, but when I come back, we are going to root some eyelashes. See you soon.